Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the University of Calgary webinar series. Our topic today, can we make traffic jams obsolete? And I know we're all hoping, Lena, you're going to tell us yes. Our expert today is Lena Catan, Associate Professor in Civil Engineering with the Schulich School of Engineering. Now, before I hand it over to Lena, I just want to talk a little bit about what you can expect today. Our webinar series is by our University of Calgary scholars, and what they're going to be talking about is a summary of their research. You can submit questions throughout the duration of the webinar. Right there on your screen, you should see a Q&A box. And you can keep the conversation live on Twitter during the webinar using the hashtag ExploreUCalgary. My name is Kelly Johnston. I'll be your moderator today. I'm a member of the University Relations team. Our expert today is Lena Catan, Associate Professor of Civil Engineering. She's an Urban Alliance Professor in Transportation Systems Optimization Engineering. That just means you're making traffic better, right, Lena? She's got her PhD from the University of Toronto, and her research is focused on the application of emerging technology to improve transportation systems. Now, Lena, can you maybe walk us through what we can expect today?
Thanks, Kelly, for the introduction. I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about traffic congestion and some solutions. Today I'll be mainly focusing on the research we have conducted on variable speed limits under connected and autonomous vehicles. But first, I want to start with a basic understanding of transportation systems, how they interact with the demand for travel, what causes congestion, and then walk through some solution strategies ranging from short to long-term solutions, and then talking about the variable speed limit research. Transportation systems are major components of our society and our economy. They are really the blood vessels for our community, taking us and moving us where we want to go, connecting us to our institutions, our families, and our lives. These systems consist of various subsystems that are connecting with each other and interconnecting with each other, like the road network and how it interacts with the bike network, and with the transit network and the bus network. Today, more than 54% of the world's population lives in cities. Canada's population is also largely urban, with more than 80% of Canadians living in cities. And these numbers are only expected to increase. With increased urbanization, we will have more congestion as a result of increased pressure on our transportation system. So we are going to have more challenges to face in order to provide safe and efficient access to goods, services, and opportunities.
And this is one of the ways research is so important, right? These are finding practical solutions to our emerging problems.
I will first start by explaining how and why congestion forms. Congestion is the result of how the travel demand interacts with the transportation supply. So we travel to accomplish an activity at a destination, either going to work or to school or to meet a friend over coffee or to go to a medical appointment. These movements that we see as flows moving on the network are also shaped by our choice on where to live, where is our work or school, what transportation mode we're choosing. Are we biking? Are we walking? And what is the departure time of our trip? How many cars we have? Our habits, and also the household characteristics, like how many people live in the house, how many kids, their age group, the activities that they need to go to or we need to drive them to. This demand is also affected by lots of other external factors, such as the economy, government incentives, politics, migration, and even weather. The supply on the other side is how efficiently and how many passengers or cars our transportation network can serve. And this is determined by the road network and their characteristics, such as the traffic lights, how they function, the roundabouts, if we have tolling schemes, also one-way streets, and so on. And also the transportation system and how frequent it is, how reliable it is, if it's very crowded or not. And when we say transit, it also consists of rail and buses. And also the bike and pedestrian network and how safe they are and how connected they are.
And this would be a constantly evolving thing. So I would imagine that that works kind of like a teeter-totter, up and down several times.
Yeah, exactly. So the equilibrium is really dynamic. So it's going to change whenever we have a change in the demand or whenever we're changing the transportation network. So traffic congestion is the result of how this demand is loaded in the network. And so the more people and more cars we have, the poorer and the more congested our network is becoming. If you look at a typical weekday, usually early morning, the network is empty, and then it starts becoming busier as people are heading to school or to work. Typically, it reaches a peak around 7:30 or 8 in the morning. You can see this green line indicating the capacity or how many vehicles per hour or passengers per hour the network can serve. And the dark orange part indicates the rush hour demand. So when the demand is exceeding capacity and congestion is occurring, the network usually becomes less busy between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Then it will reach another peak again in the afternoon rush hour when kids are coming back from school and people are heading back from work. So congestion is really mainly concentrated on these two peaks. And this is typical in most cities. The first idea that comes to mind, let's build more roads. Well, building more roads is not going to solve the congestion problem, and it's not a suitable long-term solution. If a new road makes driving to work quicker, you may benefit from that, but this reduced travel time will be attractive enough to convince maybe 2 people living in your street to abandon the bus and start driving, and maybe 2 more people in the next street to drive maybe to meet over coffee, and so on. And very quickly, the drive to work will take just as long as it ever did.
Yeah, you don't think about those consequences or those unexpected consequences from kind of opening up a new artery. You're thinking, hey, this is great, more room, but you're right.
Yeah.
Now somebody taking the bus is like, I should be in that open lane.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm going to talk about some long and short-term solutions.
And can you give me an idea, Lena, when you mean like long and short-term solutions, the timelines on those?
So long-term solution will take years, like 10 or 20 years even, to be accomplished. However, short-term solutions are quick solutions that can take just like days or weeks.
So even maybe this afternoon I might be able to employ some of your ideas.
Let's see. The real problem is that we love our cars. If we take a closer look at traffic, you see that most people are alone while driving. We call that single occupant vehicles. So these two figures show the space occupied on the road by the same number of people if they were to drive, to walk, or to take transit.
I can't believe there's that many people equals that many cars, like on that left-hand side. That's shocking.
Yeah, so you see like every single vehicle is causing a delay to all the other vehicles. So whenever we decide to travel, we're all contributing to the traffic problem.
Yeah.
The long-term solution is to provide more transportation choices that are attractive enough to be able to compete with the car. This can be achieved by investing in infrastructures that support the sustainable mode of travel, such as transit, pedestrian, and biking. However, to have a good transit service that is frequent and reliable, we need large demand to justify it. And this demand should be existing during all the time of the day. The significant demand can only be generated when we have high density and diverse communities. To explain more the concept of diverse communities, to support the travel by foot and by bike that is usually slower than other modes, we need to bring the origin of the trip, which is usually home, closer to the destination, which is usually work, school, grocery store, coffee shops, clinics, etc. So we need developments with diverse land use types, and also diverse in terms of people, the age group of people who live in these neighborhoods, because seniors and students usually rely heavily on transit. In such communities, you do not need to use the car every day. People might decide to own only one car, and use the car during weekends, vacation, or only for certain types of trips.
It seems to be quite a North American phenomenon, though, because we go further and further out all the time instead of coming in. And I see now when you explain it here, of course, we can't support the transit system to go to the farthest outreaches to get 2 people.
Right.
So it really is changing our thinking around how we build our cities.
Yeah, exactly. This is still not enough. So you recall the slide that explains the congestion being the result of how the demand for travel is interacting with the network supply and capacity.
So sort of that teeter-totter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need also to look at the demand and how to shape it. Demand management strategies focus on changing our travel behavior through incentives and disincentives. So again, if you go back to that 2 peaks and rush hour figure, congestion is mainly caused by commuters traveling in single occupant vehicles during peak hour. So demand management focuses on shaving these peaks by changing our travel behavior and influencing it to travel, to take other modes or other routes, or even decide to travel outside the peak hours. As examples of disincentives, we have congestion pricing such as tolling, or parking management, like paid parking meters with limited time in downtown areas, or parking prohibitions even.
So it's like penalties for some things and bonuses or, I guess, I don't know, benefits for others.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to change habits?
Yeah, exactly. So you reward people, like you give them rewards in order to encourage the good behavior, and penalties to discourage the bad behavior.
So like that user pay system kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And we do have a question, Lena, from a couple of slides back. Somebody's just asking about a compact community. They just want to make sure they understand that definition before we move forward.
So compact communities means high density, very similar to Kensington in Calgary or downtown areas where you have high density. So the houses are closer to each other, or the buildings are closer to each other. At the same time, they need to be diverse. So you have like different land uses in the same community. So you have residential buildings, you have commercial, small commercial, maybe schools as well in the community.
Thank you.
The examples of incentives can be high occupancy vehicle lanes, so a dedicated lane just for people who decide to carpool or for transit that can travel faster. Also, companies offering free transit passes or the option for their employees to work from home, or the option to have flexible hours. Some people prefer to start even at 6 a.m. and finish early to avoid rush hours. And also car and ride-sharing programs such as the Car2Go or Uber. The other short-term solutions can be achieved through traffic operation, which focus mainly on the maximizing the efficiency of the network. As part of this, I'm going to mainly focus on intelligent transportation systems, such as smart traffic lights that can sense vehicles on the different approaches and provide more greens in the busy approaches, or signals that can grant priority when the transit vehicle comes to the intersection, or real-time information on train arrivals or buses through smartphone apps. It's very important to highlight that intelligent transportation systems are not only focused on rush hour operations. If you look at this figure, we see that in addition to rush hour traffic, 55% of congestion is caused due to unforeseen events such as collisions, construction, snowstorms, hockey games, or stampedes. So intelligent transportation systems, or ITS, plays a vital role in this.
So right now, Lena, in a lot of cities, are the lights not timed according to the time of day? And so what you're suggesting is it wouldn't just be timed during time of day, it would be always.
Right.
The system could see what's happening and the system could respond.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why we need lots of sensors and communication systems in order to implement ITS.
Now, at one time it was like road sensors, but now we're kind of moving toward the future and your actual vehicle.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that too.
Okay.
So ITS offers more efficient use of existing capacities through harnessing information and communication technology. So it needs comprehensive sensing and communication systems. Also, it needs intelligent control, able to gather real-time data and analyze it on the fly, and also automatically deploying the actions. So finding solutions and automatically deploying them in the system. We can take an example, a major collision happening on the freeway, so sensors, or even cameras like the CCTV cameras that we see throughout the city of Calgary can have some additional intelligence to even automatically detect incidents, and they can confirm the collision location and intensity. And then the traffic management center can provide information, which is what you're doing today, through FM radio and variable speed signs, advising commuters to use alternate routes. In some cities like Toronto, we can provide even limited access to the freeway by controlling the number of vehicles that can access the freeway through ramp meters. These look like merging traffic lights. And the traffic management center can change also the signal timing along the other routes that we advise commuters to use in order to accommodate the increased and the diverted traffic. As a result, the route would be less congested for emergency vehicles and the police to arrive and clear the accident.
So this would be that place where the car is talking to the system or the cars are talking to each other, but now we have some data going into like Google Traffic and stuff. How are they doing that?
Yeah, so the basic intelligent transportation system relies on fixed sensors. We're moving now away from that, where the car can be by itself a sensor, a mobile sensor, and we're going to touch on that later.
Excellent.
So you knew that this is coming. So autonomous and connected vehicles are also part of intelligent transportation systems. The difference between autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles is when we say autonomous vehicles, so usually it comes at various levels of automation, with level 5 being the driverless car. So sometimes cars don't have even a steering wheel. And the real driver behind these technologies is to achieve greater road safety by removing human error and relying on advanced information and communication and sensing capabilities. When we're talking about connected vehicles, so connected means they can talk, they can exchange data among themselves and also with the infrastructure. And also the data can be exchanged, even as you see in this figure, between different modes as well. So as we're going to see, this data can be vital to improve traffic flow and coordinating vehicle speed. To explain the concept of how congestion forms, we're now going to see a video with a very simple concept using equal amount of rice passing through a funnel. You're going to see what will happen when everyone tries to get on the road at the same time and when we take a controlled and paced approach.
But Catherine is going to be the pacer for the cars. She's going to make sure that the cars only come on the highway as fast as we can make sure they flow through. So I'm the old highway, and Catherine is the new highway. And amazingly enough, by the time we're all still stuck on the old highway, we'll do it again, Catherine. Everybody can we can put twice as many people home in time. Do you recognize yourself sitting in traffic? Would you like to move in traffic?
To show you the similarity between this video and what we see on the road, this graph shows some data that we have collected on a major freeway in Alberta on different trails and the number of vehicles per hour that we can serve. If you look at the left part, the green line, you can see it's very similar to the woman pouring the rice through in a controlled fashion.
So we get a lot more through faster by going slower. Kind of weird.
Yeah. If you look at the area, at the orange part, it's very similar to when you dump all the rest together, resulting in traffic jam. And if you see this highlighted, the yellow area, it shows how much capacity or the vehicles per hour we can serve if we have bottlenecks, which is the orange part, or if we're moving smoothly. So clearly, we can lose up to 30% of the capacity of our road. So this means serving around 1,000, like serving less 1,000 or 1,500 cars per hour. Now I'm going to talk about how individual driver behavior also affects the traffic flow. I'm sure you're all been there. Sometimes when you're driving, you see the other lane driving faster, and we want to change lanes to get there faster to capture our appointment. We want to look at this in two different ways, and we're going to see how one decision will impact everyone on the road. As I start this video, I want you to keep your eye on the blue track in the bottom right, and when the driver decides to change lanes, how we will be affecting all the other drivers behind. We call this phantom jam.
So we're looking for that blue vehicle, Lena?
Yeah, blue track.
And he's just passing that guy.
So you see how this lane becoming congested?
Oh, yeah. And why did they almost stop there?
Because like each car is decelerating, and then the car behind should be decelerating, and then it will come to a stop and go, and it will have a ripple effect even kilometers upstream.
Wow. See, and I often do that. I have to admit, I'm a lane jumper. But clearly I'm not. I'm also the guy stuck in that jam sometimes.
Yeah, you see the queue. And now the other lane is becoming faster, and maybe you will decide to change lanes, and you're going to make the other lane worse.
Wow, okay.
But now I'm going to explain it in another way. I think the other video might also be explaining it. So this is another video by Andrew Marr explaining the same phenomenon from a computer graphic. In busy traffic, it only takes one car to suddenly apply the brakes, making the car behind to slow down further, and the next car back to reduce its speed further. This behavior creates a ripple effect and will force vehicles kilometers away to slow down. The result is that several kilometers back,
wow,
cars will still come to a stop and go cycle, and with drivers trying to figure out what's going on.
Right, because you get further ahead and you're expecting a crash or lights at the very least or something, only to find out there's
nothing.
Nothing.
It's a phantom.
Wow, okay, cool.
So it's really very important to take into consideration human behavior and driving behavior when designing these systems, because even if you do design it perfectly, significant problems might occur if you don't take into consideration human behavior.
So that's, I guess, one argument in favor of going to an autonomous vehicle. They would be better at that. They wouldn't be lane jumping. They don't have any incentive to jump over.
Yeah, for sure, we can control more.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, these videos are telling you that when everyone strives to get ahead of everyone else, we are going to fall behind, all of us. This is the price of anarchy and the penalty we pay for not coordinating our actions. How to coordinate our actions using emerging technologies? This is the next part of the webinar. I'm going to go over how to design variable speed limits under connected and autonomous vehicles. And this is the research my team is involved in now. First, I'm going to explain what are variable speed limits, and then how we can develop these solutions using data coming from connected and autonomous vehicles. So autonomous and connected vehicles are expected to be able to share information on their speed, their position, their acceleration, and deceleration behavior. And we're using this data because this is where the future is heading now.
And some of this data now we're using in some systems, like I think in Calgary now along Crowchild Trail, I think you see like, hey, it's this many minutes to Deerfoot. So what are they using now? Because we're not quite there with technology.
Yeah, so they're using, these are Bluetooth devices that can interact with the Bluetooth in your smartphone. And your smartphone has the same velocity and speed as your car because you are in the car, right? So it tracks the travel time between one Bluetooth sensor to another, and it takes the average and disseminates this information as being, this is our expected travel time from this interchange to another.
Right, so this would be removing kind of that Bluetooth idea and going directly to the vehicle that's traveling on the road. Okay.
Yeah, so the vehicles are becoming sensors.
Yeah.
And this is exactly also what Google Traffic is doing, or TomTom and Enric. So they're also using the data from navigation devices or from our smartphones, because they have the same speed as our car, to identify congestion hotspots and provide routing information and advice for commuters. So what are variable speed limits? Variable speed limits are speed limits that can change. They can change even at every kilometers and even every minute. And they change in order when we have traffic congestion or bottlenecks, or when an incident happens, or when we have adverse weather conditions such as the snowstorm or a heavy rain. And the advantages of variable speed limits is to serve more cars and to have less disturbance and smoother flow. We're going to show these advantages and through computer simulation.
So that's what you use now, like you put data into a computer and kind of get that idea of how what the real thing would be?
Yes, so yeah. This is really a complicated process, but I'm going to walk you through this process. In my lab, we rely heavily on microsimulation as our evaluation tool. And what are microsimulations? They create a virtual replica of the network that you need to examine. And the reason of using simulation is that often in transportation, we cannot test the solution on the real network, as we will be causing major disruptions. And in some instances, we don't have even the technology yet. So we need to do everything in a virtual laboratory where we can safely conduct our experiments and test various solutions under various scenarios and conditions. The microsimulation model have usually lots of parameters that need to be adjusted based on data that we collect by observing traffic, such as the number of vehicles passing through a number of sections on the network, travel times and speed, queue formation, their length, and their location. And once these parameters are adjusted, they make the model output closer to the observed traffic condition. And we call this process calibration. If you look at this slide, this is like the process we follow. I'm not going to go through this steps. This is a very complicated exercise. We usually rely on artificial intelligence and high-performance computers to achieve that. What we're really doing is adjusting the model parameters to reflect more realistically how drivers in a given network behave. So the percentage of aggressive drivers, their different response time, their compliance with the speed, like if you have speed limit on the road, and their choices of routes, and also calibrate the demand profile to have a closer number of vehicles in our simulation, close to the real number of vehicles that you observe in the network.
Adina, do you use age and gender when you're looking at the characteristics of drivers at all?
Age is reflected in the response time, and also a little bit gender is not, no, gender is not. Maybe the aggressivity is part of it.
Yeah, I see that, the aggression behind the wheel, but that could go both ways too.
Yeah, but in general, we have the same demand. So these figures compare the relationship between observed and simulated data before we do the calibration and after we do the calibration. So you see this red line. So the closer the results are to the red line, the more closely we are replicating observed conditions.
So that's how you know that your results are pure or the best that they can be.
Yeah.
Get close
So,
to that line.
yeah, this means that the net is becoming more, the model, computer model is becoming more reliable tool to test our solution. So in this research, we tested the impact of variable speed limits on a section of Deerfoot Trail in Calgary. And this figure shows the simulation, the schematic of the simulation. In this test, we have collected, we have also created a virtual accident blocking one lane close to Memorial Drive. And we tested the impact with the current fixed speed limit system and when we implemented the variable speed limit system. Again, this is a very complex process with lots of data and math. In a nutshell, what we're doing here is assuming we are getting data from connected and autonomous vehicles that are sharing their speed information. And we're taking this data to predict the future traffic condition on various sections of the freeway and identify the possible location and duration of bottlenecks. But before these bottlenecks even form, we determine how we should be changing the speed limit on the various sections of the freeway in order to eliminate these bottlenecks. And we repeat this exercise for 1 hour, assuming the accident is lasting for 1 hour.
Lena, we have a lot of people asking about how the results are affected when you have a mix of autonomous, conventional, and connected vehicles.
Oh yeah, we're going to touch on that. So this exercise, the first exercise, we're assuming we have 35% of the vehicles are exchanging their speed information.
Okay.
So these are the results that we have seen in terms of the number of vehicles that we can serve. So remember the accident we said like it's located close to Memorial Drive. And so the figure on the left side shows lots of red and dark green parts with the current fixed variable speed limit system, showing congestion formation, also propagating even further upstream. And only limited number of vehicles can be served.
Right, like because you drop down to like 1,000, or at your peak you're at 4,000. That's a major change in how many vehicles are getting through. So that rice flow again, right?
Right, exactly. This is exactly the same idea as the rice video. When we paste the cars as in the rice figure, so we paste it like we paste the vehicle through vehicle speed limit, we can eliminate the queue formation and we can serve much more vehicles.
And it would be a dramatic change for us because we're so used to, you know, the road, the limit being posted. How does that transition work when all of a sudden it's changing?
So for sure, like we need to take time, like we need some time to get used to it.
But clearly there's a good result. There's
yeah.
a better result.
But like with autonomous and connected vehicles, that won't be that much of a problem because the vehicles will be receiving directly this information and these vehicle speed advice. In another research, we examined the impact of variable speed limits on also the lane changing and the acceleration, deceleration behavior. So in addition to vehicle speed, we use more detailed information related to vehicle positions, acceleration, deceleration, and lane changing behavior. We took this information and also predicted this, the behavior of the vehicles as part of the variable speed limit values that we are trying to optimize. And we tested this on a hypothetical freeway by also creating an incident that lasts for 1 hour. This figure shows the frequency of lane changing when we have the current fixed speed limit system and with variable speed limit. So the blue line, which corresponds to variable speed limit, shows that we have a significant reduction in lane changing behavior when we implement variable speed limit. And this can be explained by the fact that when we have variable speed limit, that harmonizes the speed across lanes, vehicles have less incentive to change lane and to accelerate and decelerate.
Right, so that top line we're seeing, they think there's an advantage to going over. But
Right.
on a variable rate, because we're all moving, we're not seeing that advantage in the other lane.
Right.
Yeah.
So this means we have less turbulence and disturbance in this flow, and therefore less chance to have phantom jams. In these figures, we are having a closer look at individual vehicle speeds, the variable speed limit, and with the current fixed speed limit. So in the left figure, we can see lots of prevalence of light blue area, which corresponds to speed limit as low as 45 kilometers per hour. So you can see vehicles approaching at very high speeds that you can see in the dark orange part, and then they have to decelerate. And you see like also lots of yellow areas, which correspond to a speed of 75 kilometers. And this is propagating like really upstream, like around 4 or 5 kilometers upstream of the accident. However, when we implement variable speed limits, the blue part is almost eliminated and replaced by only the yellow part that corresponds to a speed of 75 kilometers per hour. And the yellow and also the light orange is almost taken over by the darker orange, which corresponds to 100 kilometers per hour. So we can attribute that to variable speed limits, because with variable speed limits, we are able to coordinate vehicle driving behavior by pacing their speed and how they will be joining the queue, and also reducing their speed, their lane changing frequency and deceleration and acceleration by providing less incentives to change lanes. So these results correspond to the assumption that the position and speed and acceleration deceleration is extracted from all the vehicles on this artificial network. So we have 100% of vehicles assumed to be connected or autonomous. So we are interested to see the impact of having different percentage market penetration of connected and autonomous vehicles.
And this is what one of our listeners was asking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what results can we obtain if we only have 25% of the vehicles there, because we're not going to have all the vehicles, like overnight 100% of the vehicles turning into autonomous or connected vehicles, or 35% or 50%. So this figure shows the percentage decrease in congestion, which is the orange line, and the percentage decrease in collision probability, which is green line, at different percentage market penetration of connected and autonomous vehicles. So any results that are below the blue line are negative and are desirable results because they can be translated into reductions in travel time, which means reduction in congestion, and reduction in collision probability.
Mina, do you see, because of course, you know, these cars aren't making the decisions necessarily, but they're feeding information to the network.
Right.
So do you see, though, that always there would be a human touch on this, like deciding at the traffic control network kind of what to do, or how do you see this evolving?
So what we have today is like most of the time it's the human who intervenes, but like slowly we might be having directly the infrastructure communicating with the vehicle and deciding.
And is there a communication now that happens directly from a vehicle to like a traffic light or a vehicle to something?
We can see that with the buses when they want a priority in order, when they come to a signal and they want priority, so they issue a sign, a signal to the traffic light in order to grant them green.
Oh, is that why, like at the LRT, sometimes they get through right away downtown?
Right, and also the buses as well, the regular buses.
Because I want to pass the bus. Like my instinct tells me pass the bus, but now you're saying maybe I should stay behind it.
Yeah.
I'll get through the signal faster. Okay.
So the figure shows that up to 35% of connected or autonomous vehicles, we have reductions in both collision probabilities and travel time when we implement variable speed limits that is extracting information only from connected or autonomous vehicles. However, if we only have 35% market penetration rate or less, we might be compromising safety, although we still have improvements in travel time. So it's really very important to note that that was a simulation experiment conducted only on a freeway. Different results might be expected for other scenarios dealing with other type of roads. And more research is needed to be able to say that these findings are transferable and can be generalized.
And we have a couple people who are calling in now asking about variable speed limits because a couple people have noticed that they are quite common in Europe. Is that true?
Right. They're very common in Europe and in some cities in the U.S., but we don't have any in Canada.
And is that a cost? Is it prohibitive by cost, or what do you see our holdup in it being?
It's also like it needs to go through legislation, and it's not like really that easy to change from fixed system to the variable speed limit system. But I believe like even Alberta Transportation or like some municipalities in Canada are considering that, and the city of Calgary is also considering that.
And is there anything to show with variable speed limit? We have somebody questioning the safety and whether or not that actually improves safety or is worse from a safety perspective.
Oh, it's absolutely like it's for safety, like, for sure, because when like one of the issues with when you don't have harmonized speeds, so when we say the speeds are not harmonized, so we have lots of slow-moving cars and lots of cars driving very fast. So you have, as a result, these people who get impatient and want to change lanes in order to overpass slow-moving cars. However, when we try to harmonize speeds with variable speed limits, we try. It's really like have lots of safety benefits, and this is shown like in lots of other research. So the results from the variable speed limit research shows that these technologies can provide safer and more efficient commutes. They will be coordinating the way we drive by slowing us further and giving us less incentives to change lanes and to decelerate and accelerate. And we can reach our destination faster. And safety and travel time improvements are expected at higher percentage market penetration rates of connected and autonomous vehicles. So this research only looks at one aspect of a short-term solution. Lots of other short-term solutions can be also integrated with variable speed limits, but this is still not enough. We need to keep our eyes on longer-term solutions. With the expected increased urbanization, mass transit is the only way to move people efficiently in large cities. But this can only be successful by providing high density and diverse communities with more transportation choices. Again, this is not enough. We still need to shape our behavior and our travel behavior since demand is a very important part of the equation. Once we are on the road, we are all contributing to traffic and we are all congestion. So here's what we all need to do. Municipalities and governments should consider implementing more demand management strategies such as tolling or carbon taxing for vehicles or parking management, carpooling and car sharing strategies, high occupancy vehicle lanes. And companies in downtown can consider providing incentives by offering their employees transit passes instead of the parking passes, and also offering the choice of working from home, maybe even twice a week, or having more flexible start time and end of time of the work. And commuters should consider taking the transit more frequently, biking, walking, or carpooling, even only to the nearest train station. And also avoiding rush hour traffic as much as possible. With increased urbanization, we will have even greater traffic challenges in our cities. The key is working together as a community. Only when every one of us does his or her share, we'll be able to make traffic jams a history. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. But it is interesting because there isn't really a one one part of a solution that's going to make a big difference. Like, I don't think I saw the interconnectedness with everything. Like, my choices matter, city government choices matter, political position of the day and stuff.
Yeah, this is why like an integrated solution is very important. Like we need to look at solutions that try to optimize the traffic operation. We need to look at how to change our behavior. We need to look at land uses and have more diverse land uses in order to support transit and biking and walking.
I want to go back to one of the slides. We have a question from our audience that's asking about the specifically the safety. Now, just let me grab that one back here. When we said that the safety factor goes up at that 25%, can you explain that a bit more?
So what is going on here is that we are assuming that we know only 25, the position of only 25% of the vehicles, because only 25% of the vehicles are dissipating their speed and position information. And we're designing the variable speed limits based only on 25% of that traffic. And this is why, so what we're doing here, we might be introducing some errors because we need to extract the position of the vehicles that are not equipped by doing like some estimation, and we might have some estimation errors.
Thank you for that explanation. Just kind of moving on to a few more questions that people have. They're asking about sort of what comes first. Does the government change comes first? Does the city, like who picks up this incentive? Because a few people are noticing that, you know, merging traffic lights on arteries are not a new thing. They're in other districts. So where do you see that next step, Lena?
So we really need to look at cross sectors, like government working, municipalities working with the Ministry of Transportation, and with developers, land use developers at the same time, and with also companies. So we really need everybody to be working together. I don't know who's going to start first. It's like the chicken and egg problem.
It is a chicken and egg problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
like it's that big challenge. And we have a couple of other people writing in that, you know, if we make the flow easier, as in the rice example, is there a concern then that more people will take their car and fewer take transit?
Yeah, exactly. So this is exactly the point when we say we need demand management in order to change our travel behavior.
And how do you start making that behavioral change? Like, where does that begin?
I think we should start even with school kids. Trying to, not having our kids always driven to school, encouraging them to walk or bike or walking with them, even one parent walking with many kids living in the same neighborhood and alternating every other day. So I think we need really the same way we educate our kids about pollution, and it's the same way. I think we need to start with like really even with school kids.
And maybe even being our own example, right? Like jump lanes, like I do. I'm going to stop now for sure after this. And is there a good example out there, Lena? Like, are there cities that we look to as researchers to say they're doing it right? Is there somewhere now where things are working very well?
Yeah, some European cities like really got cut the congestion by doing this integrated approach, where we need to look at demand management. We need to look at more sustainable infrastructure, more bike networks, more pedestrian networks, and so on.
We have quite a few of our folks. Can you give a specific example of which cities? Are there any that come to mind for you specifically?
I can find out.
Yeah, no, it's a good one to take away for sure. Thank you. Also, people are saying it's really hard to leave my car at home because I find Calgary Transit isn't reliable enough. And I mean, we know that transit does a very good job in many areas, but as we said, you get further and further out, it is hard to keep a schedule with a smaller population. So once again, that kind of chicken and egg thing.
Yeah, so this is what maybe autonomous vehicles can be harnessed to do. Like if we have shared autonomous vehicles, they can collect people in the same neighborhood and take them to the nearest transit station. So integrating these new technologies with our
current
transit,
infrastructure.
this is the key.
And are we going to see that soon? Like, you know, we have a few people saying, well, we're not at connected vehicles yet, or we don't have it. But I guess we're already seeing that example with Bluetooth. Even if our vehicles aren't talking to the system, our phones are.
Yeah.
So these things are already in play. It's not science fiction that it's so far out.
Right. Like most people, like when they want to go to some destination that is a bit further, we check Google traffic, right? Like, and we try to see what are the roads that are congested and try to avoid them. So we're changing sometimes even our decision of what route to take based on this information, or even deciding, no, it's very crowded. I might be better taking the train.
And we do have somebody just double checking on a definition that you use, just on harmony in traffic. Can you explain harmony in traffic? So you're just talking about all of them working together.
Harmony in traffic is like when we have the speed across lanes the same. So providing less incentives for vehicles to change lanes or to accelerate or decelerate.
Okay, thank you.
So harmonizing it across lanes.
Right, harmonizing it everywhere. And then, like you said, with the variable speed limit, I think the one great example that you have, I'm going to try to find that slide again, is in a highly advanced system, you can also have it different lanes having different speeds depending on what's happening. Like if we take an example of this slide, and that's in place somewhere else right now?
Yeah, I think that's what it's in London, UK. So in this slide, you can see there's an accident, and then you close totally the lane. So people don't have to come from 100 kilometers per hour and then see a queue, and they have to decelerate all of a sudden. And maybe another accident will happen because this is very frequent. Like it's very often to have one accident creating another and generating another accident because of that.
If we ever got to the point where we were looking at a variable speed limit on, let's say, a Deerfoot trail, do you see the fastest speed changing, or do you see the fastest speed kind of remaining where it is now, and then we would go down from there?
So it's exactly the answer is exactly in this slide. If you look, the speed will change. So the speed can be reduced or can be increased based on what's going on dynamically, based on what is going on in the network. So if we have bottlenecks, we will be lowering it gradually, so people don't have to come from 100 kilometers and then come to a stop. So we'll be lowering it for, on different sections from 100 to 90 to 80 to 70 and then so on. And even if we have a snowstorm, so we can reduce it. So it's going to change. The upper speed will change, will mainly be lowered.
Oh, the upper speed will likely be lowered.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, maybe people won't be excited about that at the top end of that, but they'll be excited when they're moving in traffic more smoothly, because I know that Deerfoot can really be a jam for lots of people for a long time, and I'm sure most cities in Canada have that same problem, I would imagine.
Right.
Okay, I really want to thank everybody for their participation today. A lot of you have asked whether or not this webinar will be available. It will be emailed out to everyone that registered. As well, if you have other people that you would like to hear the webinar, they can certainly sign on at any time and listen to it again. I want to take a look at some of the upcoming webinars that you can take part in with our University of Calgary researchers: Building Safe Cities, Ingredients for Entrepreneurial Success, Lessons in Refugee Settlement, Helping Neighborhoods, Pets, People, and Urban Places, because we know a lot of people have opinions about all of these things. And if there's a topic that you're really interested in, we'd like to hear from you. Please email us anytime. And check out our website, because even with Lena, there's more materials there on some publications that she's been in and that kind of a thing. And you can check it out at ucalgary.ca/explore/collections. Thank you again for joining us today. Lena, thank you for your time.
Yep.
Really appreciate you explaining this to us, and look forward to more research to come.